Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the Coordinated Campaign Committee webinar for July. We have Michael Georgeson, who is a member of the Green Party of Philadelphia and also, I believe, a professional graphic designer for his day job. And definitely, I can speak as another Philadelphia Green, has done a lot of our campaign and local literature in Philadelphia. And so we wanted to invite him on to talk about design principles, thinking about layouts, all kinds of things related to creating campaign materials. And so I'm going to turn it over to Georgie. And if you want to share screen, you can. And if everybody could be muted while Georgie talks, that would be great. And then we'll open it up for Q&A towards the end.
Cool. Thank you very much, Hillary. And thanks everybody for coming to check it out. I hope I have some good and helpful stuff to tell you. Let me share my screen here. Can you guys see that? Wait, there we go. Cool. Alrighty, so we're here to talk about design and campaign literature, and my name is Michael Georgeson. Everybody calls me Georgie. First, I want to talk a little bit about what's the point of this, why it matters. I'll see a lot of times flyers that are just kind of like a wall of text without really any kind of thought to how it looks. So I just want to talk about that a little bit up top. So basically, when we're talking about graphic design, we're talking about how the words look, how the information looks, and how it's being conveyed. So the words themselves are important, but if you want people to actually read them, understand them, be interested in them, you should spend some time considering the design. Good design makes things look more professional, makes it clear and appealing to the eye, and gives you the opportunity to communicate a little bit beyond the words based on how you arrange the words and the other elements in your design. So first, let's talk about logos. So a logo is a symbol used by an organization to identify itself. We're all kind of familiar with that concept. It's used for advertising, products, stuff like that. Logos that are successful are unique, simple, and memorable. And logos form the basis for what's called a brand identity, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So here are some instantly recognizable logos. The Target logo, Starbucks, Coca-Cola. So you notice that they all have, they're all instantly recognizable and they're successful, like multi-million-dollar corporation logos, but they're all a little bit different. So the Target one just has a symbol. Like sometimes it's accompanied by the word Target, but you really just need this symbol to understand what we're talking about. Starbucks has words arranged around a symbol, and Coca-Cola has the words written in a stylized way. Logos will often have a handful of variations for how they're arranged and the different color options for different situations. So for example, the Wendy's logo, like this one here where it's stacked, is the main logo. And that might be like at the top of the website, but you might want to do a side-by-side one like this one here in the lower left for like the top of a letterhead or something like that. And then in this LinkedIn example, this is just for depending on what kind of background it's going to be on or what kind of setting. So when we're designing a logo, there's a few things to think about. So what are the words? If we're going to, I mean, Target can get away with not having words, but it'll be when a green candidate can have no words in their logo, it'll be a wonderful day. But you want to think about limiting the amount of words. You want to say like the name of the candidate and then what they're running for, and that's it. You want to limit the number of fonts, 2 at most. Any kind of iconography or imagery should be simplified, and you should consider, I'm going to go into all of these a little bit more deeply in a minute. The hierarchy, which is like the emphasis of what's the biggest, what stands out the most. And when you're designing a logo, even if you want it to have more than one color, it should work in one color. For instances where you need it to, like if we go back here, like if you're on a black background, or like in these instances, there's sometimes where you can just have one color, so it should work both ways. So when we're thinking about fonts, a font is kind of like an outfit for your letters and words. You should use, like I said, one or possibly two fonts. Part of having a successful brand and having people recognize your brand and keep coming back to your brand is being consistent. Part of that means having as few fonts as possible. So using few fonts and few colors and using those same elements throughout all of your communication. Um, Different fonts can communicate a different sort of feeling for what they're talking about. So fonts that look like this, that are a little bit more narrow, heavier, that has a more authoritative feel. You have more neutral ones, and then ones that sort of communicate more personality. Uh, a lot of logos also have like an icon, like the Starbucks logo. I showed how it had words and the icon. Um, so when you're thinking about that, it should not be a photograph. It should be very simple and clear what it is. It should be um, easy to tell what it is, even when it's small, and it shouldn't, like before, it should work in just one color. So an example would be this photo of an eagle and then an icon, which is more appropriate for a logo. So here are some familiar campaign logos and the different parts and kind of what they're saying to us. So the Bernie Sanders logo, all of them usually are blue and red. That's just like the classics. They're always blue and red. So one thing we can see here is kind of the differences in the which blues and which reds are being chosen. Like um, for this one, it's a darker blue. It's a little bit more yeah, it's dark, almost black blue. Bernie has a lighter, kind of friendlier blue. Hillary had like a real kind of primary look. So you're seeing subtle variations there, and then you look at the different fonts that they're using, different icons. For example, here we've got the Statue of Liberty torch, so it's like kind of a more libertarian idea, and Hillary uses the forward arrow for progress. What some people might call progress, but whatever. So they're all kind of communicating different things with the different letter shapes, uh, icons, stuff like that. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as I'm going. Let's see. So that's doing a logo, and then beyond that, we have to put it on stuff like our brochures, T-shirts, pamphlets, whatever. And that's where we sort of get into the concept of a full brand. Brand is an idea. It's like the perceived image of of the organization or campaign, and a logo is the basis for a brand identity. Sorry, this might be getting getting a little confusing. Are we good? Okay. So the logo is sort of the most simplified, basic way to identify a brand, and the brand identity is made up of all the visual aspects that come together, including the logo, to create that brand perception. So, like for example, the perception of Bernie is like friendly and hardworking. So all of those elements come, and that perception is his brand. So all of the elements that he uses, like his logo and everything else, come together to form that perception. So that includes other fonts that you use that aren't in the logo, accent elements, and the kinds of photos you choose to use. So once we've made our logo, we go on to design other stuff. We have to make some other decisions. Am I going to use other fonts for this besides the ones I've chosen for the logo? And what fonts should those be? Should I include photography? What information needs to be on this? And how should I arrange the rest of this information? So you should still stick to a limited number of fonts, no more than 3, I would say. Use the one from your logo for headings, and then pick something that's simple and easier to read for larger blocks of text. With photos, there are good places for photos and places where you don't need a photo, but a photograph is a good idea to help let people get to know the candidate. Some good ideas are a candidate speaking to a crowd, doing something with their family, or serving the community, like planting trees. I would not use a photograph to put on a t-shirt, a business card, or like a lawn sign. I would put photographs on postcards, posters, and brochures and websites. You want to make sure that your photos are clear, flattering, that they represent something, that they're like saying something besides this is what I look like, and they're not blurry. When we take photos from the internet, a lot of the time they're too small of a file size to reproduce in print. So you need to make sure that even when it's printed out, it looks good and clear. So when I'm about to design something, I always try to gather all the information that I need to be on there. And I think, how can I cut down anything extra so it's just the information to get the key point of this piece across? People like to read as little as possible and are often overwhelmed by extra information. So things like t-shirts, business cards, and posters and flyers should have kind of less content than other pieces that I'll get into in a minute. Here's kind of what I would recommend putting on each of these items. And Hillary, is there a way we can email this presentation to everybody afterwards? So yeah, you'll have all this to look back to. But like for a t-shirt, I'd want to have maybe the logo and a slogan on the front and maybe the website on the back, something like that. And then the business card, you get a little bit more information, contact stuff. Um, Event flyers, you kind of want to cover the who, what, when, where, why, and not get into a bunch of extra information that'll bog the message down. So a lot of times people don't want to edit content. You've got a lot to say, of course. It's kind of about thinking picking the right time and place for this information. These smaller items that I just talked about are, they're more for drawing people in and kind of giving them the idea. No one wants to read like a huge like novel of text just to find out, when and where is your event. Just give people a little bit of taste and then a way to find out more information, like putting your website at the bottom of the page. So yeah, use opportunities like the website, postcards, and brochures to dig into the more finer points. And then the previous things are more just to introduce people to yourself, to the brand, or what have you. So how are we going to arrange the rest of this information? So there's something that designers talk about called hierarchy, which is basically figuring out what level of importance each piece of information has and emphasizing them in that order. So consider what you absolutely need the viewer to get from this piece. Like if there was only one thing that they are going to take away from it, that should be the biggest or have the most impact on the page. If you're laying out something with a lot more text, like a brochure, you should consider breaking the information apart into chunks with clear headings. Like a lot of times people will have a heading that says, core values, and then you could list each value with a little bit of a description under that, instead of and making it separate paragraphs so it's easier for people to scan and skim through. When we send this out, you'll be able to click on this, but this article here has some more good tips and tricks on hierarchy and arrangement. So this design is an example of very clear hierarchy. You will read this part first, and then this part, and then you'll probably read this part before you read the paragraph, and then you'll read here. If you're interested by this big stuff, then you'll read this, and maybe you'll come back and read this top bit at the part, or this little bit at the top. Sorry. So like really thinking about the size of the text, and this is also a place where font comes into play. I'm pretty sure this is all the same font, but the heading here is in bold and the rest of it is like bold and all capitalized, which makes it stand out more. And then the smaller stuff is still bold and in a color and then you get to the smallest part that's just the regular style of the typeface. And then up here, that's italic. So there's, even in the same font, you can have variety without picking different fonts, just using the original stuff that came with it, like the bold, the italic. So this is a logo I designed for a campaign for a local green, Olivier Faison, green for city council at large. So all of this is the same font in ultra bold. I chose this font. It's playful. It stands out. There's a friendliness and a softness while still sort of having a weight to it, a sturdiness. And then I replaced, so I did the first name in upper lowercase and the last name in all lowercase, and sort of the Faison sort of sets a foundation, and then you've got kind of friendlier, more playful letters up top, and then I replaced the dots and the eyes with these leaf shapes to kind of indicate our environmentalism and the concept of growth. And then at the bottom, you're going to want to say what this person is running for. There are times where you might reproduce this without the phrase green for city council at large, like if it's listed somewhere else on the same document. But in general, this whole thing is the logo. And then here's a flyer for the same campaign, kind of going over some of the stuff we just talked about. So we've got a clear photo of our candidate. She's looking right at us. It's well lit. You know, you can see a little bit of her, you kind of get a sense of her personality. So then we've got the logo. This is the front side. We've got the logo, and then a couple of little key bits of information, like 4 key points, 4 key goals, and then a little explanation underneath. And then on the back, we have a little bit more, and you can see I'm picking up the leaf shape from the logo and using that as an accent element on the back, just to kind of anchor this. This is like a longer piece of information written by Olivia. But we've got these little elements, the line with the leaf to sort of anchor it on the page. Whoop. And then underneath there's contact information to learn more. And then this phrase here is called the call to action. Let's get it started. So it makes you want to jump in and do something. And then it gives you the information on how to do that right underneath. One thing, I'm pretty sure, is it all election materials have to have this paid for by the committee to elect so-and-so on the bottom? I'm pretty sure that's the case. So don't forget that. So then when we're getting into printing our pieces, there's some things to think about. So most printing that you're probably familiar with is called 4-color process, or CMYK. This is what, like if you have a printer in your office or at home, that's what it's printing. And that stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Cyan is like a bright blue. So each of these individual colors mix together to create the colors in your design. So you're gonna wanna use that, and that's what'll be offered at any kind of standard printing place, Staples, anywhere, your office. And that's like, if you're printing like a color photograph, you're gonna wanna do it that way. But a good way to save money is to print in single color, which is one of the reasons why it's a good idea to have a single color version of your logo. From a standard print shop, that'll mean usually printing in black on white or colored paper. If you print black on a brightly colored paper, it's a cheap way to make a flyer while still having like something to draw the eye with the color of the paper. Other more high-end print methods, you can print one color on paper that's not black. That's called offset printing, usually. There are other print methods like silk screening, which is used for t-shirts and stuff like that, where you can you can use any number of colors. You'll probably want to stay three or fewer, but you don't have to print black. You could print like white ink on black shirts or green ink on a yellow shirt. And again, the fewer colors you're printing, the cheaper it'll be. So there are different types of files. for images and designs and stuff like that, which are indicated by the letters after the file name, like logo.jpg. So JPEGs and PNGs are for looking at on screens. The difference there, a PNG can have transparency saved in it. So sometimes you'll get, if you get a file where it's like a picture or a logo with white all around it, and if you try to put that on something else, put it over and use it something else, use it over another color, it has like a white box around it. That's because it's a JPEG and can't save that white as transparent, which a PNG can. What you'll mostly be interested in for printing stuff is a PDF. That's a file type for printing, and your print vendor will most of the time be looking for a PDF. Some additional resources. So the design software, I use the Adobe Creative Suite, which is kind of the industry standard, but it's very expensive. So there are some cheap and free alternatives. Canva is the one that I hear most people talk about. And you can get that at canva.com. And then again, there's a link here with some other options that you'll get when we send the presentation around. As far as looking at getting inspiration, I'm a big fan of this website, powertotheposter.com. They have a lot of different designs and different styles that can help you kind of come up with impactful imagery and just good ideas. You can go over there and take a look at some of them. So these are more for like bringing to a protest and not necessarily advertising one single candidate. It's more conceptual, but stuff like this, I feel like helps me see a lot of different ideas of catching people's eyes. Like I really like this one a lot for social distancing. And then at the top, like, so it's got this big main content here that's just kind of the idea. And then if you want more information, there's like, COVID-19 prevention effort. So yeah, that's a good place I like to go for different stuff, different clever imagery here, like the bars of the American flag here. Yeah, all kinds of different styles. Yeah, and I guess now I'm ready to open up for questions. Yeah, I feel like I kind of breezed through that, and I'm sure there's some stuff we could cover in more depth.
That was great. Thank you. If you want, you could take yourself off the screen sharing so we can see each other as we chat, unless you want to like demonstrate things possibly. So yeah, I mean, I think is really, I'm definitely not a design professional, but a lot of what you said makes sense to me. I think one of the things that I see a lot is that, but I have so much to say. And I think, Greens tend to be, I don't want to say more astute than the average person, but, we're clearly like into politics and this is stuff we care about. And we are probably the people who take the time to read that tiny paragraph. And so we think that everybody else wants to too, right? Like, we think we make decisions, let me just say that, about candidates based on their actual policies and reading position papers and, absorbing all that actual content. And, we think that it's not just about like this imagery or, like what their brand makes us feel like. And so I think therefore we think everybody else wants to consume that content and have a, deep analytical policy discussion with us through one, leaflet. And so I think that's what I see a lot is sort of this people not getting the less is more kind of thing. And so I don't know if you have any more, like I noticed with Olivia's, like that back panel still had a ton of writing. So I'm just like, how did you get her to sort of, I don't know, like what was the process of creating that piece? And did you have to sort of compromise sort of like the front versus the back? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think I cut some stuff down myself. Like I let her read it, but I kind of kept the essence of what she was saying, but trying to say it in fewer words. But yeah, there's a lot of back and forth usually, and especially if it's sort of like designing a flyer for like a group, then that becomes a big, you have to make a lot of compromises and try to find clever ways to still include everything that they want, or try to cut more down.
What was the actual size of the flyer, Michael?
That was like it was like a postcard size. So like a 6x9, I want to say, something like that. Yeah, like about the size of what Hillary's holding up.
Okay.
Yeah, about the size of my Kindle,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. Yeah, Gloria, I see your hand up.
Yeah, that was great, because at first it was really helpful to see, kind of how you just very kind of simply and clearly like laid out all what the elements should be and what you have to consider. I think those of us, obviously that's your profession, so you're a professional, and then I think there are people who have some really good graphic skills and some work, for local greens, and then there are some people like me who spent a total of, I think, 6 hours, 3 hours into the wee hours, and then early in the morning, making this one simple poster that said Medicare for All with the Green Party logo of New York, with Michael O'Neill giving me tutorials. And so I just want to say a couple of things. So I think we forget that people with these kinds of skills and that level, like, they're professionals and need to be, I think, treated and paid as much as possible, even in our own camps, right? If we don't want to go outside and get somebody, it's much more than slapping something together. I also think that, well, I have one question about QR codes. Do you think those are useful these days for more information? Because I think with Olivia's thing, like, the front part was, I think, clear and clean enough for people to be attracted to it. And if you don't turn it over and read it, you don't turn it over and read it, right? But I think that was, and so I wondered about QR codes, only because now, of course, everything we do in a restaurant is about QR codes, right, for more information.
Yeah, QR codes are definitely back, back in style. I think that's a great way, especially on like a sign or something that somebody's not going to take with them, to say, for more information, you can scan this here. There are some things that I see people do sometimes that I think should be avoided. Like, it should be, maybe 3 inches. Like, it shouldn't be gigantic, and you should have like a maximum of 1 QR code on a thing. I've seen it on signs that you're gonna see while you're driving by, so that's not safe. You should just have the website big, like stuff like that. But in general, I think that's definitely something to consider, especially if it's maybe a harder to remember or harder to spell URL.
Thanks.
I see Tim is new on the call. So Tim, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself and if you had any questions. Or not. Do you think there are any differences in how you treat designing for a candidate versus designing for the party itself?
The party itself, it's definitely more general and kind of designing for the party, I feel, is more of an overview. Like, we talk about the 4 pillars and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the time when I'm designing something for the party itself, it's a more introductory thing, and kind of a like, come on over, don't be scared kind of thing. And then for a specific candidate, I think it's more, it gets a little bit more specific, because it's more personalized about the candidate themselves, and anything that they might have that's sort of like a main issue of theirs that they champion over others, sort of making it more personal and more specific.
So when some people say, like, we want your flyer or your poster or your brochure to be camera ready, like, what's the expectation from the printer or from whoever? Like, what does that really mean? Now, I also know sometimes there's a certain, you have certain resolutions for photos that are going to work on print that are different from looking at your phone or the website.
Yeah, so an image for the screen is 72 DPI, which means dots per inch. To reproduce an image in print, ideally you want it to be 300 DPI. And you can get away with a little bit less, kind of depending on what the image is. But yeah, so like sometimes you'll, like if I download a picture from the internet sometimes and then you open it up and it's like 2 inches wide and then you try to make it bigger, then you're going to lose quality essentially and go lower DPI. As far as camera ready, usually that means the file is it's clean. It doesn't have like I don't really know how Canva and the other stuff works, but like in the Adobe stuff, you can have like things stacked on top of each other and like a bunch of extra stuff kind of in the background that's making the file bigger, but not part of the design. That's like confusing things. Also, you want to outline your fonts when you send it, so that makes it so it's not, you can't edit the text anymore. So save a new version and outline your fonts, because if the printer doesn't have that same font, like the files for that font, then it'll be reproduced in a different font. So that's part of that. When I use InDesign, we do something that's called packaging the file. I mean, that involves sending the whole font to them. But I'm not sure how it works for Canva and other things that'll look a little bit more casual, but usually there's like an outline option.
So you wouldn't put a photo on a business card?
Not usually. I feel like that always kind of looks like a real estate agent kind of thing.
Right.
So maybe like an icon or not an icon, like the logo, or I mean, it all kind of depends. But I mean, I would consider putting something like that, that like Obama Hope thing where he's in like blocked out on those colors. Like that's something I would put on there, but maybe not a photograph. It'll also like, if you're gonna pay to print a photograph, I think it makes a bigger impact in a brochure or something a little bit bigger. You can have more cheaply printed business cards
Right.
without doing that and using fewer colors.
Would you put a slogan on a business card?
If it's a good slogan.
Well, I've got a good one.
Yeah, I'd put it on there.
What about things like budget? Like what should people be budgeting for in terms of both like a designer's time, what the cost of printed material is? I mean, obviously it's going to vary and, but, there's obviously like the Lexus version and then, the Ford and the Yugo,
Yeah.
but what, like just with Olivia's campaign even, which was not by any means a high dollar campaign at all.
I don't know what she paid to print those actually. I think I just gave her the PDF.
And you volunteered.
Yeah, I volunteered. So if you've got a guy like me, that's a lot easier. But I mean, and a designer, depending on their level of experience, will charge a different amount. But you could, like, if you've got like a design student or something, someone that gets into it, and you can ask them and see how they see what they would charge. For political stuff, I personally usually don't charge or give a pretty low rate. Like normally I'll charge like a company like $75 an hour, but if I was going to charge a politician or like a grassroots green politician, it'd be like maybe $20 an hour, or like buy me a case of beer kind of thing. But I mean,
that sounds great.
Yeah. I know we always use
Gary's ready to ship you a case right now.
I know we always.
You like.
I'm not sure how much it costs. Like, I know we always use union printers, and I'm not sure how that affects the cost, but like you can get 250 business cards from Staples for like $10 if they're really basic. But then you get thicker paper and more. You can get glossy text on there, and that adds more. But you can certainly maximize your budget by kind of picking and choosing where you want to pay for better printing. I know I've made that brochure I did for the Green Party of Philadelphia. That was based on a template that you can get from gp.org, I think. But that was made so that you could print it on any, like a regular printer, and just fold it in half. So that's a way, like, if you happen to work in an office where people aren't looking at what you're printing, you can print out some stuff there too.
Yeah, and if people aren't familiar, I think I could even, oh no, it's on my other computer. It's, if you go to gp.org and go to the store, I believe, there's actually a lot of free downloads there. There's a whole section on literature that you can download. And what we did in Philly was adapt this brochure here. And we just sort of, Georgie helped us basically, you know, localize some of the content, change out some of the photos to be Philadelphia specific. So that was really nice. And this is available, and you guys can, you know, you can do that too. So we added, you know, like our local information. I think the back has like a blank panel. I don't know, we shoved it in somewhere like over here.
So you can edit that? It's when you download it, it's editable? Or Georgie could do it because he's a professional.
It's made that anybody could do it, but I think we wanted to get a little bit more, I don't know, I'm not good at, sometimes templates confuse me, so I kind of just recreated the whole thing in Adobe. But I think it's made where you can open it in like Acrobat or whatever and edit the text.
Right. There's just so much going on in that. I can't imagine just like a like an amateur like me trying to do that. But actually that leads to, if I can ask another question, I know I've asked a lot of questions. I'm really getting into this. You know, we talked a lot about all the kind of the design part, but so I'm curious about the creative part, because did you develop that logo for Olivia? And like, it's like, that's also part of it. And if you're working with a candidate or a party, you know, having the balance between what I really think the Green Party of New York should have and what you, as not just the person designing it, but like that creating that look. I think that sometimes candidates we don't let go of that, right? And so I wonder kind of, what is that interaction and that dynamic? Like, how do you decide this is going to be the logo for Olivia, and see if she likes it?
Olivia was pretty, as far as the look of it, I think I might have just made that one version and showed her that. But usually a lot of times I'll make a couple and let them pick, or if they say like, I want you to do exactly this, and I think that that's maybe not a great idea, I'll kind of do exactly that, and then do a version of that I think is better, but still kind of holds to the spirit of what I think they want to get at.
Thanks. Yeah, because that's a big part of it that I don't think we think about.
Yeah. Oh, and I put a link to the presentation in the chat there.
Yeah, I'll throw that up on our website. We have an archive of all of our webinars on gpus.org,
Oh,
which
cool.
is kind of our more internal facing website. And we are also slowly migrating them to YouTube so they can get a little wider view, which is nice. But for right now, I'll plop the link in the chat right here.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I think if anybody else has any final questions or comments, I think it's okay if this one ends a little early. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I think this has been helpful. I mean, I will say that Canva is a pretty good tool for us lay people, just because it has a lot of templates and it's a little easier to manipulate. Though I feel like you still have to know what you're doing. Like, you know, if you don't have an eye for what something should look like, it's still, you know, it's better than like, you know, doing it, you know, in Word or something. But,
Yeah.
But the other tool that I've used as a layperson is actually PowerPoint, because there are some particularly creating like photos and images for, let's say, like a website or social media. Like there's ways to, touch up color and do things, which is probably available in Word and any other Microsoft product, but it's like a little easier to look at on a PowerPoint slide. And so that was a trick that someone taught me a while ago, was to sort of use PowerPoint as almost like a poor man's Adobe. And it's actually worked for me fairly well. But again, at that like sort of very low, like not an expert kind of way. So,
Me neither.
so yeah, I think, the general takeaway here is that, this is a professional skill set that does really require a certain eye and level of expertise and experience. And insofar as we can find amazing volunteers like Georgie and or budget for it, it's something that I think is actually well worth it. People I think really underestimate just even what something that just looks unprofessional communicates, even if like all the words on the page are spot on. If it looks like it was sort of mimeographed in someone's garage, it just doesn't have the level of seriousness that I think we want when we're trying to really convince people to, give us their votes or come to our events or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't know, any other final thoughts or comments, Georgie?
Always have somebody else take a look at it. Maybe a few people from different walks of life and demographics.
Would you put bullet points on the business card?
What?
Bullet points on the business card, like student loans, universal health care?
Maybe on the back. I wouldn't get too in the weeds on there. I would try to keep that just contact information and maybe like one slogan, but
right.
And then if you're gonna try to get into more elaborating more, maybe think about moving up to like a postcard size, and even if you're not going to mail it, just doing front and back.
I know the Democrats are big on union printers. What about the Green Party?
In Philly, we always use them. I'm not sure if that's
I think it varies, but generally speaking, I think a lot of Greens do try to go with union printers. I know we've also prioritized like local printers versus like a corporate Kinko's, Staples type of thing.
Right.
There's also some priority around like, we've got a printer that uses like soy-based ink and recycled paper and yada, yada. And ideally with the trifecta, of course, is we found a local guy who does environmental stuff and is also a union shop, but it's hard to come by, and it's not always the cheapest either, which is obviously, hand in hand.
Right.
But yeah, so there's always a million considerations. Tim, I see you're on screen. Did you want to just say hi and introduce yourself? And did you have any questions before we wrap this up?
Okay, thanks. Hi, Tim Daney out here in Oregon, Scioto, Oregon, District 17, where I ran last time for House Representative. And one question I thought of is, and I'm going to try and do this, is acquire a phone number that ends in 47336. Green.
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Georgie, for sharing us your words of wisdom and your great designs. And I'm glad we have you in Philadelphia, that's for sure. So that's it. We will hopefully be back here again next month. I think the August 24th call, that's the fourth Tuesday, is going to be actually more of an issue-based webinar. So we're going to have, I think we're partnering with the Eco Action Committee and hope to be talking to candidates about various platform positions and things that, how to translate some of the lofty, ecology oriented parts of the Green Party platform into more local, policies and positions that you can take, whether you're running for school board, town council, whatever the case may be. So be on the lookout for that. And I see Holly, the CCC co-chair, just joined us at the last minute. So any parting words, Holly, that you want to say?
No, I was actually here for most of it. I had to miss
Oh, good.
about 10 minutes, but I thought this was excellent, and I'm glad that this is being recorded because I think this makes a really great addition to our. You have a general, and then this really goes into to really good campaign school type quality stuff that people need to know for having their materials made. So thank you. This looks really good. You might get some commissions from out of town.
Take it.
All right. Well, thank you all. We'll stop that recording.